Tired of sifting through endless spreadsheets? Spending countless hours on data analysis? There's a smarter way. Artificial intelligence is revolutionizing how we understand and utilize data, dramatically boosting workflow efficiency. Let's see how it works. First, AI seamlessly integrates data from all your institution's sources. No more manual consolidation. Next, AI algorithms automatically analyze this data, identifying patterns, trends, and anomalies in seconds, work that would take humans days or even weeks. The result: actionable insights delivered in clear, understandable formats. This empowers your team to make data-driven decisions faster and with greater confidence. Imagine predicting future trends, optimizing resource allocation, and personalizing services, all driven by intelligent data analysis. This means less time spent on tedious tasks and more time focused on strategic initiatives. AI-powered data analysis isn't just a futuristic concept. It's a practical solution for boosting your institution's workflow efficiency today. Embrace the power of AI and unlock your institution's full potential.
All right, so welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about AI and data analysis. So we're going to cover how you can analyze data, how you can drastically increase your speed when it comes to data and data analysis. And you will see that everyone is dealing with data at some point. So even if you think, well, right now I don't really have to do much with data, or I don't necessarily use much of it, you will see that after this workshop, you probably want to, because the efficiencies that come with AI are just incredible. And there are so many opportunities. So for everyone who hasn't been in the last two workshops, my name is Stefan. I work at the AI Lab at Biola, and we help the university, but also external organizations to engage with AI, to learn about AI. And we do it from a Christian context. So all of our ethics or our decision making is always based on our AI framework, which is heavily influenced by Christian values, such as transparency, honesty, and human flourishing. So today I will start with a short little overview of what's the difference between traditional data analysis and basically why it's outdated. And we're going to compare that to AI data analysis. It's going to be pretty quick, just, a few minutes. And then the main part is always, as always, is going to be showcasing. So I'm showing you guys how you can use AI in order to analyze data and what efficiencies come with it. And then after that, we are going to have a Q&A so you guys can ask your questions. All right, so traditional data analysis, it's pretty slow. It's actually very slow. It's so slow that most people don't even want to engage with data. And probably that's why data hasn't been used too much. Many companies or many individuals have tons and tons of data. Let's just think about your email threads, or let's say company data, sales data, but nobody wants to either hire someone because it's expensive, so we're going to talk about it, or spend the time to learn it because it's just ridiculously tedious. So first of all, it's slow because you have to sort through all of the data manually. Sure, that's fine if you have, let's say, a spreadsheet of 5 columns, but with the second you have 5,000 columns, that's becoming difficult. And then you have to start writing code or some type of formulas. And then you have to visualize all of this stuff manually as well with software like Tableau. And it's very time consuming and the communication bottlenecks. What if you don't have a specific piece of data and then you need to ask someone in order to get you that data? With AI, you can streamline this entire process where basically everyone that you want to have access to has access to certain types of data. Very expensive. You need human talent in order to do it, or you need to spend your time. So that's very expensive as well, because it's going to take a lot of time. And you have a lot of manual data cleaning. So in order to actually analyze some stuff, you usually have to clean it up. And also, if you want to automate it, then you have to clean it up. And it requires software. Otherwise, it's going to be ridiculously hard. And then you have, it's just limited in its scale. So scaling data analysis with high data sets is just ridiculously hard. So, and then you also usually run into formatting issues, right? What if it's not exactly in the format that you wrote your program in? Then you already have an issue. All right, data analysis with AI basically changes the entire game, as always, again. It's super, super fast. You will see that you can analyze thousands of rows in spreadsheets and hundreds of thousands of words very, very quickly. And well, hundreds of thousands of words, perhaps not now, but in the future. But I actually have an entire book that we're going to put into AI and we're going to analyze it, which is also just text data, right? You can automate it. So I'm also going to show you some automation examples. And the main feature that you have with AI, and that encompasses everything. It's not just about data analysis, but if you think about everything is data at some point, right? It's just either visual data or color data or so AI gives you the opportunity instead of just analyzing the data manually and looking at it, you can actually now talk to your data. You can engage your data and just have a conversation with it basically through the AI. It's very inexpensive. Some of those requests only going to cost pennies, literally. So it's, Claude AI subscription costs you $20 a month. To hire a data analyst, depending on the region, costs you $100,000 a year. So very, very different. And then obviously we go into the ethical component on, well, what happens to data and like analysts, and how are they going to move forward? Well, we can talk about this a little bit at the end. And yeah, so it's a pay as you go. You don't have to pay them just by like every single time you need them. You don't have to pay them whenever you don't need it. And AI is just always there. And then also scalable, 24/7 available, and it can handle crazy amounts of data, and the formatting doesn't matter. All right, so let's go into the AI showcase. First of all, we're going to talk about how you can use AI to find data. So kind of continues with what we had last week with the research process. But here, if you look for data, so let's say you are a university, right? And you can expand that into anything. What if you're interested in seeing other universities' enrollment data, and then you want to compare it with your own enrollment data? Or you're a restaurant and you want to do research on, okay, what data is out there on how many clients or restaurant visitors are visiting a certain restaurant, right? So just scrape the entire web and found me the data. If you want to learn more about how to do research, then we're going to publish the research workshop that we had last time. All right, let's jump into it. So always do search the web because we want to search the web. So ChatGPT is supposed to know that. So you can say search the web and find me the enrollment. So you're just going to go with universities now to find data. Find the enrollment data of Biola University and some of its competitor universities. All right, so we're just gonna send that off. And now it's going to start searching the web. Now imagine, well, if we would use Google, then we might get a similar result, but that's not always the case. All right, so here you got it. Here's something from Azusa Pacific. Here's some other ones. Okay, so now we can ask for, okay, nice. Now give me the websites where I can gather that data using spreadsheets. I know that Biola has a external facing website that hosts the data. Look for that in the or at the websites of the other schools as well. All right, so we're going to send that off. And now it should give us all of the websites for the enrollment data. So here we go. Here's one website. And it gave us the enrollment data. So here we go. Azusa Pacific. Let's see. They have a common data set. So we're on institutional data. Let's see if that's actually correct or not. Common data set. So I don't know what exactly is in those data sets, but Biola is correct. And then here's Pepperdine. So let's see how Pepperdine works. Okay, it's also institutional research, quick facts. So we would have to see in order to like actually find the correct enrollment data. So you would have to put a little bit more research into it, but it usually works in this case, how you can see with Biola. You would just need to prompt it a little bit differently. Again, if you want to know how to prompt and do research on it, then you can always go back into the other one. Here's quick facts. All right, so here's a little one about fall 2025. So if you put a little bit more research into it, you're going to find it for fall 2025 or so for the other years. So let's go with just this data set that we got here. Okay, so now we have some data sets. Now we want to analyze it. First, if we want to analyze it, we got to look into it. So here's the data set. We're going to jump into this task because here's the enrollment data And yeah, so now analyzing this is going to take a little bit of time because you have to go through it, you have to find key metrics and all of that stuff. Well, now what we can do is we can just download those files. So we're going to download it as a CSV. AI genuinely analyzes spreadsheets the best as a CSV because then it can write custom code for it, which works the best. All right, so once we have this, we can now go into the data analysis part. We're going to go to Claude AI. Claude AI is, as of today, the best coding engine, and that means it is the best data analysis engine because data analysis at the end is just writing code. What we do now is we're just going to submit that both spreadsheets in here. So we have the 2 different years. And now imagine how hard it would be to just compare those, right? You would have to make a new spreadsheet. You have to make sure that they are next to each other. Then you have to run either some formulas. But now we can just extend those and implement those. And then you click on extended thinking because extended thinking is going to increase the brain power of the AI. It's like a reasoning model. So it just takes more time to think. It comes up with better answers. If you want to access this feature, then you have to pay $20 a month. If you're using a lot of like code or data analysis, if you're kind of into data analysis and you're like just someone who wants to have some insights out of it, highly, highly recommend it. Okay, so what can we do now? We can do analyze these data sets and give me the changes in key metrics. So you see, I'm not even saying at what key metrics, I'm just saying key metrics so it can make up some. In key metrics, comparing 2025 or 2024 to 2025. All right, so if we send that off, then we are going to see that the model is reasoning through its answer. So here's some reasoning part. This is basically the thinking token. So what is the approach that this AI is going to do now in order to solve this problem? And then if you ever want to analyze anything, basically you always have to look at the data set. So now we're going to understand a little bit what AI is doing now. We could also just skip this and I can show you something else, but this helps you to understand what the AI is actually doing. And then you see it's basically the same thing that a human does. So here it checks what type of file it is. It checks how the file is looking like. Here it's basically cleaning the data up for its processes. And it's writing custom code for each of those steps. All right, so now it's going to create some type of key performance metrics and it's writing its code. And then at some point it's going to be done and then we're going to see results. But you can see that this is basically showcasing the steps that a human would have to do as well. It looks at the code and it creates a new spreadsheet. A human would do it, this one won't do it. But it creates some type of environment where it can work in. That is what it's doing. And then it generates some type of code and actually implements it. All right, so here are already the different metrics that it's running. Here's 2024 and here's 2025. And now it's just going to start comparing it against each other. And it takes a little bit of time, but I want you to show the full process. Otherwise, if I just skip back and forth, then you might not get the exact process of how something like this could look like. And I'm going to show you many, many different examples. So this is an example of just comparing spreadsheets to each other. But we can also do text data, and you're going to be shocked how big of data you can do and how big of data sets you can do. Sometimes it runs into some errors, but that's not an issue because it's going to find ways around it and it's going to debug itself completely from scratch in order to achieve its results. And also you have to understand right now it's making up a bunch of different key metrics. So it's not just analyzing the data, it's actually creating key metrics on how those different data sets could be compared to each other. So it even helps you with the creative part of coming up with those metrics. All right, so I actually forgot to start our first polling question. Sorry for that, Jenny. But while we are waiting here, we can ask you guys on what part of the data work takes the most time for you guys. So I can also specialize or focus a little bit more on those different topics. right, so pretty even. So creating visualizations, 33%, 22% comparing data sets, analyzing and interpreting data. Okay, so I'm going to focus on that. And then, so visualizations, we're going to do that now. Analyzing and interpreting data, that's what we're doing right now. Finding and cleaning the right data. Okay, so finding and reading, just go to the research one last week. It applies the same rules. You just have to ask specifically for data sets. All right, so it actually finished its key findings, and we can see that freshmen increased by 10.6%. We see that graduate students grew by 6.7%. And okay, so this is great. Now we're going to do two things with this. First of all, we are going to create a data dashboard, right? Visualizing data is the hardest thing, basically. I mean, analyzing it is one of the hard things, but visualizing it is even harder because it's very specific knowledge. And then if you want to do that in Excel, I mean, it's fine, but if you want to, it's better in Tableau, but it takes more time and it's the best in AI. So you would just say create, or you can say code a data dashboard that visualizes all of the findings you just gathered. Make it look super professional and extensive in the data analysis. All right, so we're going to send that off. Again, make sure that extended thinking is on. And what AI is going to do, it's going to take the data that it just gathered, the analysis it just made, and it's going to create a dashboard. So here we go. We already know that AI can code, but now it codes in a different language. It uses React. Before that, it used some type of other language in order to parse data and then analyze data. Now it's just representing or visualizing data. So it's a little bit different. But this is going to shock you quite a lot because usually people never ever had anything to do with data visualization, and I didn't myself because it's a whole different aspect of work and people were paid a lot of money for that. Well, now that basically got automated, right? We were talking about automation. The ethical implications, yeah, it's difficult. Nobody really knows what new jobs are going to be created. I assume that we are going to have perhaps two types of different markets. Maybe one market is just pure value creation out of AI, so videos, movies, all of that. And then we might have some type of human market where we value human impact. So for example, when it's relationships or when it's art, when it's movie creation, people don't only want to see AI generated content. Maybe they have a high emphasis on seeing what humans are creating. And that's why they're willing to pay a price in order to know that it's human generated content or created content. But how that looks like with data visualization, I don't know which CEO is going to be willing to pay someone for data visualizations just because a human made it. Probably not too many. All right, so here we got our data dashboard. Just imagine how long it would have taken in order to create those charts, in order to visualize the data. But what you can see is actually the crazy and the cool thing is it messed up a little bit the numbers, but it doesn't really matter. We can now see at one glance that we had like 74 freshmen that came from compared from 2023 to 24, and that's a 10.6% increase. We had a 2.5% increase in total undergrads. So how do we now know that those numbers are actually correct? Well, we have to go back in the data. And usually you can't check everything. That's the issue with AI, because if you have hundreds and hundreds of columns, you can't check everything. But if you partially check and it's partially correct, then you can assume that the rest is correct as well, right? Just statistical relevance. That's how checking just works. You can't check everything. You have to trust at some point. But don't trust blindly. Do partial checks. Okay, how do we do it? Well, we go into our data set. Let's do the 23, 24. So I'm just gonna put that here. And now we are going to go back into Claude and we're going to check if some of those numbers actually add up. So total undergrads, we have 3,481. Total undergrads, we have, okay, so here we have 3, okay, so that might be the wrong data set. Let's check this one. Okay, yeah. So here it's 3,481. The reason why this one isn't correct is because that's 3,395. But if you do 3,395 plus 86, because that's the increase, then you get into 3,481. So it passed both of the data points correctly. Here it's 3,481. And then you have graduate students, 831, which 831. So let's see. So perhaps it might have done a mistake here, but there's also possibilities that I am just reading the data wrong. When I checked on the data before, so I did some tests, it was always correct. So usually if I see a mistake, then it's usually my fault and not the AI's. But we obviously have to be careful with that. So let's check again if some of those, maybe we can check some other key metrics. So for example, here we have graduate students and total undergrad students. So since this number was correct, we should assume that the other number is like that the other numbers are correct. But I guess in this case, perhaps it has done a mistake, but I don't have the time to look into it now because we want to also show you some other things. So I think I can showcase you some of the data proving with some other things. So how about we do some text data? Let's say you have something like this. So genuinely speaking, it is correct. I haven't seen it made mistakes when I was checking. This is now the first instance where it might have done a mistake, but I don't have the time right now to just show you every single step on how I would validate that because it's really just number crunching and I want to give you the opportunity to explore more things. All right, so here's another one, which is post-dinner feedback. So let's say you had a sheet right after you had an event, and then you sent out feedback. And here, this is all just mock data, right? It's not real data. And I just made up some names, made up some feedback, and then suggested methods, and then basically what they liked about the feedback, about the dinner, if they would attend again, and some additional comments. All right, so what would we do with this? Sure, you can read through this, and perhaps you should, but if you have 1,000 attendees of an event, then that's going to be difficult. So you want to synthesize that. Well, how do you do it? You just go into Claude, you take the feedback form, you put it in here, and then you can say, filter out the main feedback I got after this dinner. Make sure to emphasize on what would make them attend again and find key insights. All right. So now it's going to do exactly the same thing again. Just to open up your mind, what could you do? So here's another one with sales data, and it takes a little bit of time to analyze it. That's why I don't go through every single example, but I can talk about every single example because you understand now the realm. Like if you think about it, if I would show, like there are infinite possibilities at this point. So I can't talk about them all, but here's some sales data from 2024. Here's some mock, it's all just mock data, right? Sales data from 2025. Well, what could you do? If you want to analyze, let's say, what zip code has done the most sales, well, that would be difficult. What you could do now, though, is you just submit both of those sheets and say, hey, which zip code has done the most sales based on the project value? So based on the total sales, which zip code has generated the most sales? And then you know, okay, this zip code is where I perhaps should focus on. Maybe that's my prime market. So this is what you get out of data analysis. You get key insights on what is actually happening. Or maybe here you have as sales representatives. Well, you should know how much people have sold, and there are usually sales boards, dashboards. But maybe there's a correlation between the zip code and the like correlations that you didn't even know about, right? So maybe a certain sales representative is acting specifically well in a certain zip code. And then you can just analyze all of those key data points. And if you don't know what you want to analyze, but you have the data, you can literally just ask the AI to generate you ideas on what correlation you could find. So it's just incredibly powerful, incredibly powerful. All right, so it's done here. We had only 6% of people would definitely attend again, while 11% said maybe. And then let's see if we find some type of correlation. So what would make people attend again? So 7 people are interested in faith and work. So perhaps we should invite a speaker that talks about faith and work. So, right, I mean, it's just all of those insights. And how long would have taken you to just come up with this? Okay, cool. So let's do the second poll. And the second poll is, we are wondering if you have ever used AI for data analysis. So have you done it? And if yes, how many times? And yeah, and if not, then are you interested or not at all? All right, cool. So 60% say no, but I'm interested. 30% is yes, they have used it regularly or a few times, and then 10% not at all. All right, that's great. So yeah, there's so much to see. Let's do a last example, and then we're going to go a little bit more into automation, because what you can see right now is that every single time we are submitting something into Claude, and this is great for individual examples and individual data sets, but what if you want to streamline that a little bit? Well, I'll show you in a second. Right now, I want to show you one more thing with how can you actually publish those dashboards. And I also want to show you how big of data sets you can do. Okay, so here's our book, which is called What Christians Should Know About AI. You might have heard about it because I talked about it in a few workshops. So what you can do, this is 130 pages of just text data, right? Formatting is just terrible for any computer because how do you format this into, like, this is great for humans to read, wonderfully formatted with bullet points and all of that. But this is what just breaks any formatting tool. Well, no problem with AI anymore. You just download it. Again, 136 pages. It's like 30,000 words or something. You put it into Claude. Make sure you toggle on extended thinking. You just get better results. And then you can say, analyze this book for key metrics and key how's it called? Correlations of AI and faith after the analysis. And you can ask specific questions like, okay, let's focus on Bible verses. Also focus on which Bible verses were used. And then it can extract that, right? After the analysis, make sure to code a data dashboard showing the data. All right, so it's going to do all of this now. It's going to pass through the entire book, which is just insane. Now compare the speed of AI compared to the speed of a human. If you read it, yes, you understand it. But what if you want to just get a key point out of it, or a key metrics, or you're just looking for a key insight? Well, you don't have to look through the entire book anymore. You can use AI. And then with the research workshop last week, you can see and ask for the quote. Where exactly did you find this, right? So if you find a key insight and you want to double check if it's actually in the book, just ask for a quote that proves the key insight, and then search for the quote in the PDF document, and then it should come up. If it doesn't come up, then you should be suspicious. So this is how you can always play this game of, okay, we trust AI, but we don't fully trust it. And the better it gets, the more reasons you have to trust it. But always, always, always validate, especially if there's something on the line like your reputation or honesty, then always, always make sure. If you're just analyzing some data because you got a feedback form, then it's less important, right? I mean, you want correct data, but then you can trust it a little bit more. But if you make a data analysis and then you present it to your boss, or you present it in some type of presentation to key shareholders, well, you should definitely check. It would be pretty risky not to check. Okay, so it's gonna come up with this entire data dashboard. In the meanwhile, we can ask you guys the third question, which is, if AI could instantly do one thing for your data, what would you choose?
Let's see what we've got here in a few seconds. If AI could instantly do one thing for your data, what would you choose? It boils down to one answer. Let's see. Alright guys, let's do this.
All right, so visuals is the biggest one. Combine multiple data sets and then clear insights. Okay, visuals. So here are your visuals. You can also turn them, right? You can also say, let's say for the sales data that we had, you can ask for graphs. So let's go back into the enrollment data. Look what types of visualizations you have here. If you create the data dashboard, you have your visualizations. So for example, what can you do now? Well, you have this, and then what you do is just you make a screenshot, and now you have it. It's done. You can put it into a presentation. You can even do, now you can take the screenshot and you can put it back into Claude. So here it is. You can put it back into Claude and say, give me 3 short bullet points about this chart I have used from the dashboard. I mean, you can make up your own bullet points or you just use AI in order to do it. Here's another one, right? Just screenshot it and put it into, you can also generate those graphs. So for example, you can say, so here are your 3 bullet points. You can also make it, condense it by 50% if you want it to be shorter. You can also specifically ask for line charts. Like you can generate anything. You just have to say it. So here we go. Here are your bullet points. You can change it. All right. So here's the data dashboard for the what Christians should know about AI book. Remember, it just passed through 130 pages, 30,000 words. Here it's the biblical foundations that are used for this book. Here is what type of biblical themes are mentioned. So this you could condense that because right now it's just mentioning one each. You can just say create categories or something, then you have a little bit better data. Here you have some key metrics that were used within the book. And then let's say you want to check, right? Okay, is that actually true or not? You can just go in here. You don't need extended thinking for those things anymore. And then you can just say, give me the exact quote in the book that proves that this point is correct. All right, so we're going to put it in here. And then here are the faith correlations. And yep, here's some warning signs. So, and since I wrote the book together with my co-author, I know all of this stuff is actually correct. So, all right, so here's the exact quote where we talk about the 85%. Okay, so here's the exact quote. What we would do now is just go back to the document, search for it. So what I did is just I asked for the quote and then I copied it and now I click Command F and then I search. So Command F, Command C, search for it, and then here we go. And then since this book actually has hyperlinks, you can just click on it and then you immediately find the source. All right, and here we go. Now we have the source and we just proved our point. Okay, how do we streamline this? Because maybe you don't always want to create new data spreadsheets, right? Maybe you want a spreadsheet that automatically updates, or you have a spreadsheet that automatically updates, and you just always want to ask questions. You don't always want to download it, put it into Claude, wait until it analyzes. Maybe you just want questions like, hey, what's my daily sales today, and how does it compare to yesterday? Well, we have a solution. So what we built is actually a Telegram bot. And this could be done in Slack, this could be done via email, this could be done via WhatsApp, doesn't matter. We just use Telegram as an example. And this is basically the back end. And what you can do here is you can take, that's a sales. So we have fed in the sales data of 2024 and 2025. And now imagine 2025 is updating daily, right? New rows are coming. And this is also updating daily. So you always have the newest data. So what you can do here is you can go into your Telegram and then you can ask, what is my best-selling product in 2025 and how does it compare? So let's say the same product to 2024. All right, so we're just sending this off. That triggers this workflow. This workflow is now scraping through the data, and this is with so many benefits. First of all, you don't send all of your data to AI, but you only send the data that is necessary for this very approach. So the cool thing is this is data protection. You don't send the entire spreadsheet, you only send the data that's actually necessary in order to fulfill this request. And we do this through SQL search. So yeah, here we go. So here's our answer. The best product is our puzzle. We sold that many units. Compared to 2024, it compared better. It performed actually 1.59% better. So this is where you see automation. Now you just have you don't need all of those AI tools. AI is just in the background. We automated the process and we can ask questions just through our chatbot, through our engine, like for example, Slack or email, doesn't really matter. So yeah, this is how you can automate it. And also one more thing that I wanted to talk about, once you have this data dashboard, or let's say here this enrollment dashboard, what if someone is interested in this? Well, super simple. You can just click publish and then you just publish this entire dashboard. And then you're going to get a link, and I'm showing that this is work. I'm just going to an incognito window. I'm going to open up this link, and now you have access, like anyone you sent this link to has access to this very dashboard. And don't just think it's just this one, like it doesn't just have only this data. This is only the enrollment data. It also has data on demographics. Here's how it categorized man and woman, like from gender, and maybe like where they're from. And then here you have different trends, and here you have some insights. So yeah, maybe we can talk a little bit about more on when it comes to AI and the future and where an AI analysis is going to go. I see a future where more and more of our processes, of our data, and of our personal data, as well as company data and professional data, is going to be implemented into AI in a more seamless way. So more and more of like this back-end structure is going to be developed, where AI will always have, whenever you ask a question, it will have more and more context. So that means if I ask for sales data in 2025, it will have access to all the data in the company, not just the sales data, but for example, the data of cleaning services and the data of how many times the building was cleaned and what times it was cleaned. And then it finds correlations between seemingly totally unrelated things. Like maybe sales actually go up if our building was cleaned and then we have clients come to us. But maybe it's lower if at a certain time the building was maybe less clean and then the sales drop, right? Those are correlations that we as humans, it just would take too much time. And we can only do one thing at a time. AI can just crank out all of those calculations at once, and then it shows you correlations that you never thought is possible. So the context windows of how much data AI is going to be able to process at once is going to increase and increase and increase and increase. And that means that you're going to get crazier and crazier insights, but that also means that your data protection becomes more and more important. So I have one last slide, which is basically just some thoughts about AI and data analysis. So again, you are the expert, not AI. So that means you can trust AI in many, many ways. You should for yourself. So I trust AI in many things because I have tested it. If you don't trust it yet, you should test it. That's the good thing with a human. If you try to test a human, they're probably mad at you, but AI won't be mad at you. And once you have the trust, then you know where to test it and where not. However, you're still the one that is carrying the responsibility, and you are still the one who needs to make sure that the data is correct because you carry the responsibility, even though you use AI. Then that's the same with never trust, validate. Make sure to have at least in your head that AI could make a mistake. And then it comes to data privacy. So there are mitigation tactics. This one is a really, really good one. But so where you just only send the relevant data, and I could go into depth, but I don't want to eat into the Q&A too much. But then you can also use open source models, for example. So instead of sending the data to ChatGPT and OpenAI, you can use open source models, and then they only have the data within your cloud and actually never leaves your cloud. All right, so that's everything I wanted to talk about for today, and we are ready for Q&A if you are.